All right. Welcome back, everyone. So happy to see you. Thank you for tuning in again. We are ready to talk about triggers again. I know last episode we talked about triggers a little bit, but after some feedback and some thinking, we realized that we need to go talk a little bit more about triggers. And so this episode is called Triggered by Their Past.
Okay.
Loving someone with old wounds.
All right. So as usual, I'm Stanley and this is Cathy, and we are dinner for two.
Yes. So loving someone with old wounds.
Okay.
I think, gosh, if you've lived in this life, you come to every situation
Absolutely.
with something.
Absolutely.
With something. So if you're going to love someone, you probably are going to love you'll love someone with old wounds.
Yes.
With something that's happened to them in the past. You didn't cause their pain, but you're living through it. You're living through it with them. You're sometimes victims of it. You sometimes are bound by it. And there's a lot that goes into really navigating other people's pain.
Okay.
And sometimes we have the option to not do it and just say, if there's relationships and people are just acting crazy, or, friendships, or you got dealing with somebody that you like, oh, she got a lot going on. You can make a choice to just say, okay, I can't deal with that. But what if you're in love with this person? What if this is your spouse?
Right.
What if this is the person that you're connected to in that way and you don't have a quick exit?
Right.
You don't have the option to just say, okay, we can't be friends because something is wrong and I don't have the bandwidth to try to help you fix it because I'm trying to fix me. So what happens when it's not that person?
What about if it's a covenant, not a contract?
Yeah, a covenant, not a contract, or a convenience.
Yes.
What if it's a covenant and not just company?
Yes.
Yeah, because sometimes, it could be a covenant and not just company.
Well, let's just dig in because there's a lot of stuff there. As soon as you mentioned wound, I thought about your friend and our friend, Helen, who's a nurse.
Mm-hmm.
And there's going to be different levels of wound care that you're going to do based on the wound that you have.
Yeah.
And so that was the first thing that I thought about. And so
you may not care for it at all.
Right. And you may not know that there's even a wound there.
Mm-hmm.
And then you wind up stepping in an area that's very painful and traumatic for somebody. And so, yeah, let's talk.
Yeah. If you're dealing with a person who is dealing with something that they don't even know about,
mm-hmm.
that goes back to landmines. And sometimes not really knowing what's underneath that dirt, what's under the ground, what's there. So what if you're with someone who, has a wound and they're still bleeding from it, but, you can see the blood, but they can't.
That's interesting.
Mm-hmm. You can see that they're bleeding, but they can't see that they're bleeding.
Right.
What do you do?
Well, that's really interesting because you're saying you can see the oozing of the effect of it, but they're not aware that it's even happening.
Right. Or they don't see the impact of the wound. They don't see that they're dripping blood all over the floor and that it's festering and all this stuff is oozing out of it. They don't see it.
Okay.
They don't realize it. They don't realize that there's something there. And even if they sometimes realize that there's a problem, they may not. What do you do when they don't want to deal with the problem? They just want to maneuver or just keep moving around it, but they don't realize that it's causing infection in your relationship.
Okay. That's interesting on a lot of different levels. And first thing I thought about is sometimes when you're in an accident and you're stunned, you can have an injury that you're not aware that you have. Mm-hmm. And so it goes back to making sure that we're communicating effectively. And if you're using the tools that we're giving you, once again, we're talking about your tool belt. If you're using those tools, then you're able to go in and pull out that tool where you talk about, this has really got nothing to do with you. I'm triggered because of a situation or circumstance that I had previously in life. So let me just deal with that. If you would, just give me a little time to deal with it, to process it. and then I'll come back and we can talk about whatever just transpired.
Yeah, there's some reality around relationship residue, though.
Okay.
And I want us to be mindful of relationship residue because I've recognized that I'm triggered by certain things, or I recognize that something in my past is bleeding over into my future, bleeding into my present. I own that, though. I have to own that. And that doesn't mean you get a pass to treat people poorly because you haven't, or you're just discovering, or you're deciding that it's something that you need to work through.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I do believe that you should be given grace, but I also believe that as we are discovering that about ourselves, we don't have the right to bleed on other people.
Okay.
And yes, and not to a point where it's detrimental to them.
Right.
So if you see yourself doing that in a relationship, you have to deal with you, like fix you. You don't get to say, oh, I got issues from my past, so I'm just going to be nasty, or I'm just going to treat you a certain way, or I'm just, as I figure this out. You don't get to do that because no one has to be your doormat.
Right.
So when you realize that you're doing that, you have to take some ownership and say, whoa, I didn't realize that I had this thing that was still buried so deep inside of me. And sometimes we think dormant means delivered. And just because it's dormant doesn't mean that you're delivered.
Absolutely.
Sometimes it means that it just hasn't been tapped yet. So when someone taps it and you realize, whoa, this is rising up in me. And like I said last episode, when it touches your mind, it hits your mind, and you go, as soon as this happens, then you go back to that.
Right.
You realize that that's a trigger that you haven't dealt with yet, or that you may be in the process of dealing with, and it requires more work.
Right.
It requires more time. And it doesn't mean, I don't want to give the illusion that you somehow can forget everything that's ever happened to you. That's an illusion. And that's not something that I'm by any means co-signing on, because a lot of times there are lessons in those things that you need to remember. That keeps you safe in your present. But the other part of that is that you need to also know that as you reach back to those things and you see those things from the past, you need to compare them to your current truth.
Okay.
And say that if this is something that has happened to me and I'm feeling this way because of, again, I keep using you knocked the cup over. And that takes me back to when I broke a cup as a child and I got beat to death. Almost to death, or whatever the situation is, then I start yelling at you or telling you that, you can't do that or whatever, or I got in trouble for my sibling doing that. And I'm like, you can't break stuff. Don't do that. What's wrong with you? And I have this big, large emotion behind it. That is residue.
Right.
That's residue that has to be washed off. We got to get rid of that.
And so that's what I think is really helpful about the information that we're sharing, is that you need to understand that the this may not be about the this. The this may be about the that. And so when you understand that, and now you're self-aware and you're using the tools that we're providing for you, it gives you an opportunity and gives you a platform to, once again, to level up your relationship.
Yeah.
Because we're always interested in you being in a position where you're growing. And that your relationship is thriving.
Yeah.
And the way that happens is recognizing and then working toward repair, which is one of the things that we talked about the last time.
Right.
But the recognizing is super important.
Yeah, it's very important. That residue is, that could be from abuse. That could be from betrayal. That could be from abandonment. It could be from rejection. But it's important for us to realize that just because I've connected with someone better or someone that doesn't treat me that way, that it doesn't mean that goes away, that those experiences that I had went away. So it's important for us to be in a relationship and be able to communicate in a way that says, I have some stuff. We used to call it baggage. You come with some baggage, you come with some baggage. But I want us to reframe that, because baggage gives us this thing, this image of just dragging something heavy and whatever. And although it is heavy and whatever, it's very real.
Yes.
So it's not baggage as in you need to throw that stuff in the trash. It's baggage as in you need to uproot that, and let's compare it to now to see what's still true. Because just because you've been abandoned doesn't mean that you will be abandoned again.
Right.
You know what that feels like. You know what it looks like, but it doesn't mean that you have to do it again.
So it comes to mindset, right? We talked about your mindset about whatever it is
Absolutely.
that you're dealing with.
Absolutely.
And so we're encouraging you to adopt a different mindset. We're not denying anything. We're not saying that thing didn't happen, and it's not that it's real, but it shaped who you are. And so what we want to do is we want to continue to transform instead of just modify, right? So we want you to be transformed in the renewing of your mind and how you're adjusting to or how you're adapting to the things that you're encountering.
Yeah. These braces are still giving me they're giving me the business today. So I'm still doing all this stuff. So please forgive me if I'm making weird facial movements with my mouth because these braces are giving me the business.
Okay.
So what do you do when you find yourself paying for someone else's mistakes?
Well, prayerfully and hopefully in relationships to the people that we're talking to right now is we're going to ask them, hopefully during that quiet time that you're having, these are the issues that I'm noticing. And I noticed that when we have conversations about this particular thing, it causes you to react in a certain way. Is there something that I can help you with? Is there something that's an issue there that we have not discussed? Let's talk about that for a minute, if that's comfortable. But remember, you've already at that point, you've created this safe space. And so they know how much you care. They know that you're going to listen attentively to whatever it is that they're talking about. And so you want to create that environment so they can actually share and you could possibly get to what the real issue is.
Yeah. It's hard, though, when you feel like you're being punished for trauma you didn't cause. So if you're being punished for trauma you didn't cause, you have to be able to communicate about that.
Yes.
So that you're not being held hostage by stuff that you didn't. This is like dirt, that you didn't play in the dirt. So I shouldn't feel dirty because you played in the dirt or whatever because the situation occurred. I want us to just be really mindful about that when we are interacting with people, is that we are really taking the time to be reflective and to ask, am I holding someone accountable? Am I punishing someone now for something that they had nothing to do with?
Right.
And, when you feel as though you are being punished for trauma you didn't cause, you have to have a conversation about that.
Absolutely.
You owe your partner the truth. You owe your partner honesty, and you owe your partner an opportunity to grow and to develop. And if you realize that is something that is causing issues over and over and over again, that has to be discussed. And finding a safe way to do that, hopefully you've now created a safe space.
Yes.
And you as a partner have created one for your partner and vice versa, because that's both of your responsibility to have a safe relationship. And one person can't create it you can't create it by yourself. Right. It has to be created for the relationship. So helping without becoming a healer.
Once again, stay in your lane.
Stay in your lane.
Stay in your lane because you're only going to be equipped to handle what's in your lane.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And I think one of the references that you gave the last time was when you talked about school. And so when people come in, they may have an idea of what they want to do, but you need to stay in your lane because there's certain things that you're going to be equipped for. And if you haven't gotten the tactics, the skills, the processes that go along to do the job effectively, let somebody else do that.
Yeah.
Get a coach.
Yeah.
Get a mentor.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. And again, I know with clients that I have, having conversations with them, we talk about that a lot because this is very common. This is why we went back and did a double circle back, did a circle back to triggers because even speaking with clients that I have, one of the things that they talk about is when you're feeling it inside and you don't feel like you can share with the person that you're connected with, intimately connected with, you don't feel like you can share things with them that are hurting you. That's something that we have to figure out what words we need to use to get our point across so that we're not constantly feeling the weight of pain, someone else's pain. We start taking it on because we don't want them to feel it out of love, out of care, out of concern or lack of concern. We don't want them to feel it. So then we bury it.
Mhm.
We carry it. And then what does that do to us?
Right.
It breaks us down. So we have to be in a constant space of being fair to yourself as you're being kind to others, being kind to yourself as you're being kind to others,
Mhm.
and understanding that triggers, tantrums, and tenderness, those things those things don't coexist.
Triple T.
Yeah, the triple T's. You're looking at tools to de-escalate are not always readily available if you don't practice using them.
Right.
So when you start to see that someone is being triggered, and I'll talk about it from both perspectives really quick. So if you see that someone is being triggered, then what is your role? What is your responsibility? What do you do in that moment when you realize that someone is being triggered? I'm gonna bounce that to you.
Okay. And once again, go back to the tools. And so if I look back on the things that we've talked about before, then I'm going to listen attentively.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm going to take a little soak time.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm going to tell them what I heard.
Yes.
I'm not going to tell them what they said.
No.
I'm going to tell them what I heard.
What you heard, yeah.
And is that accurate?
Right.
And then we're going to move from there. Once again, keeping what the resolution is that we're talking about, keeping that on the table, and then moving forward. Yeah.
Yeah. So I love that. Tell them what you heard.
Yes.
And not what they said. And often you said such. That's not what I said.
Mm-hmm.
That's not what I said. And that's probably the calming moment for me when someone says something like that and I realize it is completely inaccurate. I literally, I feel my whole voice change. I'm like, that's not what I said.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not going to get into a back and forth about something that I did not, that's not even relevant. That's
Right.
not what occurred. So ask, did I hear you correctly?
Mm-hmm.
This is what I heard. Is this correct? Now, there's another step to that, which is when you ask that or when you receive that question, you have to be in a space where you can say, no, that's not what I said. And you're willing to hear what's correct.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where we get into this back and forth where people are like, now you're taking a stance. You're sticking your chest out. No, that is what you said. No, it ain't what I said. We're not doing that.
No.
We don't have the time and the space and the energy for that. Our energy should be spent on things that are more pleasant. And in that situation, if it's not what someone said, be man or woman enough to be quiet and say, I misunderstood you. I must have misheard you. Then tell me what you said.
Mm-hmm.
I misunderstood. And then check your filter. Ask
Right.
yourself, why did it go that way? When she said or he said this, what did it run through to make it dirty?
Mm-hmm.
Because that may not have been how it came out.
Right. And once again, keeping the objective of the entire conversation is to get resolution.
Yeah.
And so if you're keeping that on the table and you're making sure that's the focus, is resolution is the focus, then now all of these tools become very essential to making sure that you're accomplishing your goals.
Right.
And that's got to be the objective.
Yeah. I want to, I thought about, and I wanted to try to see if I could find it, but it's going to take too long, so I won't. But I remember what it is. But when we start to think about de-escalating in those situations, I want us to also be mindful of our behaviors while we're trying to calm down other people.
Everything speaks.
Everything speaks.
Mm-hmm.
You know, everything speaks. Your words have sound, but a lot of other things that you do send
Mm-hmm.
a message. They talk.
Yes.
They speak for you. So be mindful of that when we are having these conversations around triggers. If someone is triggered, that's not the time to add more stuff to what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
It's time for you to be concerned and to ask questions so that you can get clarity.
Yes.
And then give them space to be able to answer. It's not rapid fire time
Mm-hmm.
while you're triggered. But let's see if we can come back and figure out what that thing was so that we can avoid that going forward. We don't want you to be triggered. We don't want you to be hurt. We don't want those things to be happening to you. So if that is honest and that is true and that's how we feel, then why don't we stop when we realize that it's bubbling up and say, I'm noticing that this conversation is causing something.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what it is, but do you want to talk about it now? Or do we want to come back and talk about it later?
Right.
Because I realize that it's deeper.
Right. And you talked about some of the physical responses too. But so now, once again, it comes back to you being self-aware.
Mm-hmm.
And if you know that your heart is starting to race, if you know
Yeah.
that your mouth is getting dry,
Mm-hmm.
or whatever the case may be, you have to also take it. Because we talked about improving a relationship is not a one-sided thing either.
It's not.
So you're going to have to have both parties working to make this relationship as functional and effective
Mm-hmm.
and loving and
Mhm.
safe as it possibly can be.
Right.
And so once again, you got to do the work.
Do the work.
You gotta
Do the work.
do the work.
Boundaries, remember, boundaries are designed to protect both people
Mm-hmm.
in a relationship. Boundaries protect me. If they're my boundaries, they protect me and give me some very basic level things that are non-negotiables.
Mm-hmm.
That's I always say that, your goal and your boundary is your starting point. It's not the end.
Okay.
So if that's your starting point, then that's the least that you're willing to accept. So you stand in that, and it's okay to have boundaries, and they're there to protect me, but they're also there to protect you and to protect the value of our relationship. Because if you honor my boundary, I'm not setting boundaries to keep you away from me. I'm setting boundaries to make our relationship healthy.
Okay.
And if you reframe it to that, where I know if you do this, it's going to cause me to feel this way, which will damage our relationship. Let's just set this boundary so that doesn't happen. Because again, if you're honestly wanting to protect the relationship, then those boundaries are for both of us.
Yes.
They're not just for one person.
Okay.
So now let's talk about how to heal this.
All right.
Our acronym right now is, we always have to leave you with something. So our sticking point for you right now is HEAL. We're going to give you the acronym HEAL. H stands for hold space.
Hold space. Okay.
Yes. So you're going to have to hold space for the conversation. You're going to have to hold space for what's true in you, what's really triggering you, what's true. You're going to have to hold space to do the work.
Okay.
And then if you're the receiver on the receiving end of someone being triggered, then you have to hold space for them too.
We talked about grace before, and
you
how
have to give them some grace.
How important it is to extend grace in every situation, because some days you're the bug and some days you're the windshield.
That's right.
And so extend grace to whoever it is that you're in a relationship with, because that's going to cause a relationship to thrive.
But I want to be clear that, yes, you're absolutely right. I want to be clear, though, that doesn't mean that you don't do the work and you feel like now that gives you permission to be nasty and mean to people.
Right, because now you're not respecting boundaries.
Right, because now you're using that as an excuse and as a crux, as opposed to a starting point for you to start digging in and doing the work.
Agreed.
So so get busy on the work. So H is for holding space. E is encourage treatment, encourage therapy, encourage coaching, encourage them to do something.
Yes.
So if you see that people are being triggered, don't go, oh, you need to see somebody. You crazy. That's not it.
That's not encouragement.
That's not encouragement.
No.
That's not encouragement.
No.
But I want you to think about asking them, what can I do to help?
Probing questions.
Curious questions. Remember, in your relationship, you remain curious.
Mm-hmm.
So, because people are ever evolving.
Yes.
So as you're encouraging them, I want you to start thinking about, what are some things that I can do differently to help you when this happens? Or do you want to talk about where you go when something happens like this? And if you don't, how can I help you? Can I go with, let's find a coach.
Mm-hmm.
Let's find someone for you to talk to. And in doing so, do you want me to go with you, or tell me how did that go if you want to talk about it? But creating a space, encourage them and let them know that you're safe for them to talk to about what's actually going on with them.
Right.
And you realize that it's not you. You don't take it personal. The last one is ask without accusing. Or not the last one, the A. The A is ask without accusing.
Okay.
Heal. I was spelling heal without the L.
It's going to be a problem.
That was going to be a problem.
Yeah.
So ask without accusing, and ask those probing questions like we just said.
Mm-hmm.
What is it that I can do to help when this happens?
Right.
Or tell me more about what you're feeling.
Right.
Do you know where that comes from? Instead of accusing, don't start with the you always and you you ain't this and you that is so useless. Oh my God, it's so useless, and it is detrimental to your relationship. Those are building that wall that we talked about, that boundaries are not.
Instead of a fence.
Yeah, those build walls, not fences. So the last one is love with limits, and that is scary because they tell, oh, you're supposed to love without limits.
Right.
No, I challenge that. I'm going to say love within your limits. Mm-hmm. And what that means for me, when I say that, what I'm saying is that you need to love to the point where you are able to care for people without damaging you.
Without sacrificing you.
Yeah. So you don't have to die to love.
First thing I thought about when you said love with limits was a speed limit.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you go to different roads, you're going to have different speed limits.
Yeah.
You know, in communities, you're going to have 25. Outside of that, you have 45. On the
Mm-hmm.
expressway, you're going to have 75.
Mm-hmm.
And I think all those comes from what we talked about earlier with your relationship leveling up.
Yes.
When your relationship levels up, when you first get together, you might be at about 25 miles per hour. But when you've been in this thing like 18 years like we are, you might can move a little bit faster. You can move at 75, 80 miles per hour and still be able to maintain
Mm-hmm.
and keep the car in the road.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And when you early on, you're not going to be able to keep the car in the road going 90 miles per hour because you don't have that map that we talked about.
Yeah.
You don't have that trauma map for your spouse. You don't know how to navigate those turns, those quick turns that you have. And so keep that in mind also as you're moving forward, that you need to make sure that you're learning them and that you're constantly evolving as it relates to the relationship.
And know that you can't fix their past. But what you can do is you can figure out how to love them and help them navigate their present so that they can fix their past.
Yes.
And that is critical. It's crucial that you do that. So, and that only happens with conversation. It happens with gaining clarity. It happens with safety, safety on their part and yours. And it happens with really commitment to the goal of the team winning. Because like we said before, and we've said multiple times, if we're on the same team, there is no winner and loser.
Mm-mm.
We
Either
lose,
we all win or we all lose.
or we lose.
Yeah.
There's not a team. You're just not, LeBron won last night, but the team lost. No.
Not how this works.
No, the team lost.
Yes.
Or the team won. So we have to be mindful of that. So let's give them this challenge.
Okay.
So the challenge this week is to write down what helps you feel safe when you're emotionally overwhelmed. Then share that with your partner.
Mm-hmm.
And that's an individual activity. I want you to just take a minute and just go somewhere. Think about, if I was feeling this, what could that person do to make me feel safe?
Right.
Or what is it that I need them not to do that they traditionally do that makes me feel unsafe? And then turn it around and make it what I need you to do to make me feel safe. So think about all the stuff they don't do or that doesn't create that for you. And then turn it around and put it into statements of what it is that you do need and what you do desire.
Right.
And once you do that, share that. Because again, we talked about unmet expectations, those unspoken expectations. And most of the expectations that aren't met in a relationship, it's because they aren't shared. Mm-hmm. They're assumed. It's assumed, but never shared. So we're going to have to be mindful about being careful to share what we're thinking. And this is a good place to do it.
Excellent.
This is a good place to do it. All right.
Is that the end?
That's the end.
I hate it when we get to the end. But
we got more to come.
But here we are. Once again, if this is impactful, if it's making a difference for you, then share it with somebody. We take this very seriously. We enjoy what we do. And I enjoy doing life with my wife. And we want that to come through in everything that we say.
Yeah, we do. We do. And again, we're not perfect. So one of the things that I love about this space for us is that we're very transparent. So if you hear it and we're talking about it, it's probably happened or it's happened with people that we know and that we're working with or whatever. So just know that we're here and we're excited to see you excited about the relationships that you have with your spouse and with everyone around you.
So once again, we thank you for tuning in to Dinner for Two, and we look forward to seeing you the next time.
Take care.